Yes, you just got louder. Thank you.
Fantastic, thank you. So what I've put in our chat is, good morning, everyone. My name is Ailgif. I am a volunteer with Virtual Ability and Second Life. During this panel discussion, panel members will describe their experience with peer support in real life and in Second Life. To begin, I would like to welcome our panelists and everyone to the Mental Health Symposium. And I would like to go down the row to begin our panel discussion. Beginning with Kelly. Kelly, will you please introduce yourself and tell us why peer support is important to you?
Everyone, my name is Kelly and I'm a 53-year-old stroke survivor of 13 years. Peer support is important to me for sharing ideas, having a connection to others, and knowing I'm not alone. I find solace in knowing I'm not the only one experiencing the isolation and anxieties that come along with limited mobilities and activities. It also does my heart good when I'm able to help another overcome fears and limitation to living a healthy life.
Thank you, Kelly. I would like to go to Dorie. Dorie, would you please introduce yourself and tell us why peer support is important to you?
My name is Dorie Bernstein, 49-year-old disabled autistic. Kelly, Goldstein, and I are the managers for the Dream Progress Group and Dreams Estate. Our group hosts support groups for stroke and TBI survivors and caregivers, persons on the autism spectrum, and adults with ADD or ADHD. All of our groups are examples of peer support, as we do not have any professionals on staff. Without that peer support, we wouldn't be able to exist.
Thank you, Dorie. Shyla, will you please introduce yourself and tell us why peer support is important to you?
Okay, I'm Shyla the Soup Gecko, and I live with chronic pain and chronic illness and PTSD. And my conditions impact me physically, emotionally, mentally. And peer support helps me be around others who have found solutions and live better today as a result. I learn a lot from peer support groups. They offer me greater happiness. Social skills help me see I am competent, capable, and worthy. They help me see that I have options and opportunities, that I do not have to succumb to ableistic ideas like my work defines me. I am able to contribute in different ways. How important it was to let go of my old ideas and accept or learn new ones. And this I did through peer support and one-on-one therapy. I must be honest here, and hopefully this provides a picture of my state of mind when I attended my first support group. It was before I even had chronic pain and illness, and I kind of got asked to leave. They suggested I leave and seek one-on-one help. And I was angry and aggressive and a disruption, and I wasn't getting anything positive from the group. But I think I've come a long way since then. I've chaired peer support group meetings. I have worked in administrative positions of peer support group organizations. I've attended numerous support groups and continue to learn from others in peer support environments. Thank you, Ailgif.
Thank you, Shyla. Anya, will you please introduce yourself and tell us why peer support is important to you?
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much. It's always an honor to be here at Virtual Ability. And I want to say, Shyla, it's so great to be sitting next to you. It's a real honor. Anyway, I'll put my information in local chat. There you go. In real life, I am Dr. Colleen. And I feel strongly that peer support is great because there isn't that power imbalance. Now, I facilitate meetings. I need to get back to them. I had to take a break from them because I was burned out. Not from the meetings, but from getting a PhD. Try it sometime. You'll enjoy the burnout. And what I found is that if I'm on equal footing with people, I just call the time and the place. There on the Fearless Nation Sims. But we all share and we care and open up, and I just find that it's so healing, not just for me. I don't do it for myself, but for everyone who feels comfortable with a like-minded group who are struggling with some of the same issues. So thank you.
Thank you, Anya. I appreciate that. Namaara, will you please introduce yourself and tell us why peer support is important to you?
Thank you so much. I'm going to assume everybody can hear me. I'm really glad to be here and to see everyone in attendance. We've got some great things going on today. Anyway, I'm the executive director of the Brain Energy Support Team. We've been providing peer support for over 12 years. In the United States, those with mental health challenges often feel isolated, inadequately supported, and ultimately become frustrated because care is often difficult and or expensive to access. It's also a difficult system to navigate, especially for those who are cognitively different. Our brains are wired differently than the mainstream. It's exceptionally hard. However, in a peer setting, somebody's got an open mic. As I was saying, however, in a peer setting, an individual connects with someone who has a shared life experience. They get it. That is, they understand what you're going through. That is true for peer support groups, too. In the 1960s and 70s, we had what were called RAP groups, and these were peer support groups for a wide variety of issues and ages. As a teen, I attended a weekly group for about a year and even had a teen mentor. So, to this day, I can recall how helpful it was as I navigated all things adolescent. So when I began working with BEST, I appreciated the value of peer support from my youth and understood the need for community-based peer support groups. Over the last few years, research has shown that peer support has better outcomes in areas related to mental health management and or recovery, and that peer support tends to offer greater levels of self-efficacy, empowerment, and engagement. Overall, our experience with peer support is that it facilitates better quality of life outcomes, greater understanding of the challenges that neurodivergent populations have to deal with, and a sense of belonging. Further benefits include lessened suicidal ideation, lesser rate of reported isolation and homelessness, diminished frustration with others, while citing increased reports of positive feelings and overall life outlook. So this is why I believe peer support is important within our community, all communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Namaara, and thank you to everyone for introducing yourselves. We will move on to our first question. Before I do, I wanted to let everyone know who is attending the symposium that depending on time, we will have open questions at the end. Starting with Kelly, what has been your experience with peer support in real life or Second Life?
My experience in excuse me, in real life has been that most stroke support groups are geared toward older people, more severe cases, or caretakers. I'm relatively able-bodied, independent, and active, but definitely still feel my own limitations. The closest young stroke survivors group is 60 miles away. Though the times I went, I really felt connected. They do have a Facebook presence, but it's not the same as face-to-face in-world interaction. My experience in SL is isolated to the Dream Stroke Survivor group, Shockproof. It's not as active as I'd hoped, but when we do have some who show up to meet, it's helpful to have people to talk to who understand my struggles and pains.
Thank you, Kelly. And this is also to Dorie. We are just going to work our way down the row of panelists. Dorie, what has been your experience with peer support, real life and or Second Life?
I've had experience with peer support in a variety of settings. I am on the autism spectrum and also have a serious genetic disorder that significantly impacts daily life. Also, I am a parent of an autistic young man. Peer support for parenting a disabled person comes through a local nonprofit group that provides programming for all abilities. My genetic syndrome peers rely on the internet for support due to the rarity of our condition. Most of us don't know anyone locally with our syndrome unless a family member also has it. I've toyed with peer support in SL for myself, but found that it was overwhelming. SL can be a better escape if I can forget for a moment what real life is throwing at me. Yes, I totally get the irony of helping manage dreams and related groups. Alts are imperative for the ability to enter SL off the clock.
Thank you, Dorie. Shyla, what has been your experience with peer support, real life and or Second Life?
My experience is that my needs change over time. Let me get this in the chat. I'm not being good about this. Just remind me if I miss one. Yeah, my experiences needs change over time, in that all the peer groups I've belonged to have helped me in some way. With time, the type of group I benefit from, though, changes, and it's important to me to seek out new groups which can address the issues impacting me in this moment. For me, it's important to remember I can leave a group and find another, and stay in contact with the close friends I've made in all of them. It is the same with Second Life, but here it expands to other forms of peer support. In SL, I have experienced much support from individuals and various groups which might not be viewed as support. To explain, I started in Second Life University campus. I was there a year before I took a suggestion and branched out to a freebie store. People at the freebie store helped me learn how to dress. People in virtual ability and dreams helped me learn how to build and texture things. Another person helped me learn a bit about scripting. Those experiences changed me for the positive, and I visit most of those groups less now, but I still stay in touch with people from those groups. Today, I engage in artistic endeavors, which I've gone beyond Second Life. I define myself today as a poet, an orator, a writer, and I participate in works made inside SL, outside, in projects which combine the use of SL in the physical world. And when I first became disabled, I didn't think any of that. I couldn't even comprehend doing things like this. I just thought my life was over. And I believe without question peer support groups, social groups, and individuals played a significant role in making this possible, each and every one. So we can talk about peer support groups, but in a way, I experienced various kinds of positive support in Second Life, and I think that is important to remember. More than peer groups offer support, and these avenues of support are important as well. Thank you, Ailgif.
Thank you, Shyla. Anya, what has been your experience with peer support, real life and or Second Life?
Well, it's been very positive. I feel like I'm not alone. Having PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, is a pretty lonely road. And when I see, when I'm on equal footing with people, I can see that we are evolving and changing rather than just being alone and isolated. I think we've all had a chance to be isolated because of the pandemic. Are we? Is this the fun part yet? You know, is it ever going to be over? Anyway, there's nothing like peer support, and also there's not that power imbalance like when you go to a therapist, which I recommend that anyone do if they're depressed or they're having problems or issues. However, in a peer support group, you get a lot of different perspectives, and I feel that that is invaluable to feeling, building resilience and strength. Thank you.
Thank you, Anya. Namaara, what has been your experience with peer support in real life and or Second Life?
First, I'd like to just say that Shyla brought up a very good point about there being additional avenues of support, especially within Second Life. And I've, of course, can say that because I've benefited from those as well. But, back to my answer. In 2007, there were 15 known peer support groups across the state of Washington, which is where I am. And with 3 exceptions, those groups were led by or were linked to specifically mental health groups. From 2008 through 2020, BEST created, administered, and provided resources and funding for 72 independent support groups with 108 peer facilitators and 1,100 to 1,500 participants per month. Now in 2020, Washington State Department of Social and Human Services shifted their priorities away from peer support and chose instead to fund internal initiatives that focused on education and general information facilitated by state certified professionals. BEST now offers peer-led activities in Second Life. We also host video meetings, one-to-one coaching, along with resources and education. Our activities in Second Life include a broad range of participants that are neuroatypical. And one example of how we use Second Life is engaging BEST program participants in life skills activities at Etopia, as well as the activities offered by Second Life partners such as Virtual Ability and Whole Brain Health. We've had a lot of success with that. And in fact, we've seen much of the same quality of life gains over the past couple of years hosting peer support in Second Life as we did prior to 2020 in our in-person groups. So knowing that within SL we're reaching a large segment of people who are unable to attend in-person peer support settings, and those who can, reinforces my belief and our belief as an organization that Second Life really is a valuable environment in which to offer peer support. And I'm sorry if I spoke too fast.
Thank you, Namaara. You've each spoken about your experiences. I would like to talk now about the mental health needs in your communities. Kelly, what are the mental health needs of your particular disability community, and how is a virtual world beneficial for providing mental health support for your particular disability community?
Many stroke survivors find it difficult to leave their home and benefit from knowing they're not alone. We can all help each other with ideas for living easier and more fulfilling lives. For those who are functioning enough to be online, I can see where a peer support group would make them feel they belong in a place such as Second Life. It can be a really good social outlet if you're lucky enough to meet good people.
Thank you, Kelly. Dorie, how about you? What are the mental health needs of your particular disability community, and how is a virtual world beneficial for providing mental health support for your particular disability community?
Virtual worlds are a boon for the autism community. Many autistics are able to thrive behind the screen. The ability to thoroughly customize avatars without the limitations of being stuck in human form gives a way to explore one's identity and to show others how you see yourself. The ability to log out when things become overwhelming is cathartic. The ability to rely on text chat for communication can help many autistics avoid some of the obvious tells that give them away in real life. For at least a while, one can be seen as normal from the start. Text also gives one the ability to edit speech before hitting the enter key to send it out into the world. As many people are slow typists, slow answers aren't a tell that someone may be needing to type carefully. Virtual worlds also allow one to control visual and auditory stimuli coming through the computer to you. That's so amazing for avoiding sensory overload.
I was muted, sorry. Thank you, Dorie. Shyla, what are the mental health needs of your particular disability community, and how is a virtual world beneficial for providing mental health support for your particular disability community?
Turn your mic on, Shyla.
Oh, I was reading that so well, too. Thank you, Gentle. People with chronic pain or chronic illness and or pain lasting 3 months or more, are 4 times more likely to experience depression and or anxiety. In 2014, people with some form of chronic pain, not figuring in chronic illness, was an estimated 20.4% of Americans, close to 68 million people. Of those, 8% have high-impact chronic pain. That is chronic pain which prevents some activity, working, house cleaning, and or maintenance, etc. And that equates to 26 million people. I have high-impact pain. Depression and additional anxiety were invasive. Today, thanks to one-on-one therapy and peer groups, my depression and anxiety comes and goes, infringing most when my pain spikes. Support groups help me feel better about myself and my condition. I have new perspectives on how to define myself, how I contribute to society, and the importance of self-compassion for my mental, physical, and emotional well-being. Virtual worlds provide an outlet for artistic expression. Second Life allows me to do things I cannot in the physical world. Here, in my virtual world of choice, I find social interaction, something lacking in my physical world. I read poetry, I snowboard, I meditate with others, and visit the most extravagant events like SL's Fantasy Fair. SL offers me some sense of belonging to a community and being a contributor. And if anybody wants them, I also have the stats on chronic illness. Back to you, Ailgif.
Thank you so much, Shyla. Anya, what are the mental health needs of your particular disability community, and how is a virtual world beneficial for providing mental health support for your particular disability community?
Thank you. Well, I think we've all been talking here about isolation. I work with PTSD, and it can be very isolating. Sometimes people with PTSD, we're fearful. We tend to, self-isolate because we feel so at odds with the world. And also, finding a good therapist is very hard. I'm also, like Namaara from Washington State, I don't know what the problem is, but there's 5,000 people to every therapist, and it's very expensive. So peer support groups, especially for PTSD, can help people not just have like-minded people, but we help each other kind of go through a grieving process. There is a grieving process, all 5, 7, 8 stages, whatever people are saying, how many stages there are, and we help each other get through that. If there were not a support group for PTSD, the incidence of suicidal ideation, self-harm, and depression, the whole 9 yards, that increases greatly. And I agree with Shyla. The virtual world especially provides outlets for nonverbal expression so that you can work through that grieving process. Thank you.
Thank you, Anya, and to all of you so far. Namaara, what are the mental health needs of your particular disability community, and how is a virtual world beneficial for providing mental health support for your particular community?
I just want to say this is a very broad, large question, and I had difficulty answering it in the time allocation I was given, so I'm hoping I do well. As in other communities that are represented here, our population struggles with isolation, loneliness, depression, and hopelessness. So there are a lot of people who are dealing with these as part of the pandemic experience. For those who are neurodivergent, these issues definitely existed pre-COVID. Additionally, access to transportation, quality health care, nutritious food, and safe housing are universal concerns that are further exacerbated by the constraints and concerns of navigating a pandemic-impacted world. There are a lot of statistics, but because of time, I'm just going to share a couple, right? If we look at the research on mental health and brain injuries, we find that up to 61% of adults struggle with depression, anxiety, PTSD, and suicidal ideation after incurring a TBI. Major depression is the #1 mental health issue for individuals with brain injury and their families. Additionally, research shows that nearly 78% of autistic children have at least one mental health condition compared to 14% of neurotypical children. And the finger is pointed largely to PTSD, for example, as an occurrence of bullying. And I think that's a topic that we need to be mindful of as well. Autistic adults are 33% more likely to have mental health challenges than neurotypical adults. Our community not only needs but demands appropriate, respectful, and holistic approaches to our mental health needs. For as long as medical model care provided by professionals is the go-to one-size-fits-all option, those needs will not be met. So it's my belief, as well as our organizational belief, that peer support is the best way to help those with cognitive differences to understand and articulate their needs so they can better advocate for themselves. And so that they're able to get the most out of mainstream medical mental health care. While engaging with people in Second Life doesn't resolve many of these issues, Second Life has proven to be not only an innovative approach for providing peer support, but it's an amazing social, educational, and for some, an exceptional professional environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Namaara. I have one last question for all of you. For our last question, starting with Kelly and working down the row without being called on, is there anything else you would like everyone to know that hasn't been addressed in one of the questions today?
I honestly didn't think of anything. I'm sorry.
No problem.
Learning from our experts has its place with dealing with disabilities. Peer support offers you the place to be with others who understand on a more intimate level what you're going through. While experts do know a lot, they rarely truly know it from a personal level. Peer support doesn't have to focus on discussions about one's personal disability all the time. Just being in the same space and time with peers can be enough to create a comfortable place to be. Conversations can happen, but they're not required.
I just wanted to say there are a variety of peer support group styles. Try one, and if it doesn't seem to help or worse, agitates, try a different one. Some peer support groups are led by other group members, well, all of them are actually, but sometimes chairs revolve amongst members of the group, and sometimes peer group leaders have some training or even credentials in addition to being a member of the community. Groups can focus on different things. Some might be focused on just listening, providing space, and others may be more practical. Some might be spiritual and others secular. Groups vary across the board. Some may address specific conditions, while others are more general. Guidelines vary too. Sometimes they are more like rules, and sometimes they are suggestions. It helps to know the guidelines and even the feel of the group. I suggest trying a group to see what is a good fit, and if not, try another. Peer support groups have helped me, but everyone is unique. I think as an option for support, they're worth a try. In one group I am comfortable recommending to people with chronic pain is Pain Connection. Pain Connection offers a variety of meetings, including those listed on the poster behind me. It is an organization for people with physical chronic pain. You can click the Pain Connection poster for a note card on their website and additional information. And I just want to thank you for letting me participate in the conference. I know I have some different views sometimes, and a special thank you to all the volunteers who make it possible and welcoming this conference. Thank you.
So thank you so much to our panelists for sharing with us today. We just have a few minutes. Are there any questions or comments from our audience? Oh, please do, Namaara.
So I thought I would ask because I'm using both text and voice. So I wanted to just quickly say that I agree with Dorie about peer support versus a professionally facilitated group. This is something that has always been at the core of what BEST does. It's also something that informs and drives our Empowered Self program, which facilitates an individual's process of identifying and creating, articulating, right, a quality of life that works best for them. And I also agree with Shyla about sometimes having a contrary position may be uncomfortable for some people, but I believe it's so necessary. And that is not in text, but I did want to say that. And I wanted to, again, thank you for inviting me today, and I thank everyone on the panel. So many great points about peer support have been shared today, and that's it for me. Thank you so much.
I agree. If I might jump in here, thank you so much. Virtual ability has been invaluable through the years, and I also wanted to kind of back up Shyla, well, the whole panel really, about how peer support groups will provide you with contrary opinions where you can work it out. You can, not be so inside your head all the time. This is just a terrific panel, and I did want to point out there's a poster behind me. It's my research poster on the efficacy of the metaverse as Second Life, in particular for people with PTSD. And if you'd like to take a look at that, you can click it and go somewhere else. But it's been a real honor to be with all of you today. Thank you. And thank you, Gentle, for making this all possible.
I'm going to butt in. There are some questions that I think we need to address, but I would like to thank Ailgif for organizing this panel and running it. But Ailgif, you didn't get a chance to introduce yourself. Would you please tell us a little bit about yourself and your research that you've done in Second Life?
I would like to. Thank you.
Would you like to use the transcribers and just talk and let them talk?
Yes, please. That makes it a lot easier. I have a hard time typing and speaking at the same time. So thank you. And thank you to Gentle for inviting me to be a moderator on the panel. I have enjoyed today, and I've had the opportunity to meet Shyla actually a few times, and Shyla has been a guest speaker for some of the classes that I teach. I'm an instructor at a community college, and one of the classes that I teach is on multimedia, and another one is on interactive storytelling. And in each class that I teach, I really try to incorporate Second Life into those lessons. And Shyla has been gracious enough to meet with my class inside Second Life, to share her poetry. And I've had so much support from people who are a part of Virtual Ability as well, including Gentle and including iSky, who have both helped me in a personal project that I worked on in Second Life during my defense when I was a graduate student a few years ago. And my focus has been on understanding our environment through what we hear and making sure that our content that we create is accessible. And when I created a display inside Second Life, I relied on people who are part of this group to really help me to know how do I make my work accessible. for people who are deaf and for people who are blind and for people with different neural diversity in the way that they experience a story. So that has been a big part of what I have been working on. And I want to thank you and all of the panelists today for being here and for having this mental health symposium. And if I may add, there's a very personal part of my life with my mom, who is no longer in this world. She suffered from mental health issues for a long period in her life, and at some times she would go into deep depressions and not be able to take care of my brother and I. And there were times we couldn't continue to live with her. And so just watching her go through that and experiencing it from personal perspective, it just makes it so important to me to know that there are groups here in Second Life who are supporting one another. So that's all that I have to say. Thank you. Do we have time for questions from the audience?
Yes, we do. Our next speaker is sitting here, but he is, I think, listening avidly.
Great. Are there any questions or comments?
Mook had a comment. Peer support can be as impactful as family support, oftentimes even more. Parents, siblings, partners, and children may love you, but they may not fully understand your condition and its issues. Being understood is necessary to mental health. Understanding, not acceptance, is what tells us that we are not alone with our problem, that our situation can be comprehended by others. Being understood, not just accepted, is to her one of the most powerful stress and anxiety relievers, because understanding and not acceptance, I think she's making a point here, leads to the possibility of answers and forward progress.
I just wanted to jump in real quick. This is Anya. Peer support groups do provide a kind of family. And I think that's so important, the difference between understanding and mere acceptance.
These are all great comments. Polaris says he was in Second Life since before he developed multiple sclerosis, and groups who helped during his transition have been essential. Let's see. James says he found that getting over his issues had to start with letting go of self-medicating. Getting and staying sober was the best gift that he ever gave himself. He found that getting over his issues had to start with letting go of... Oh, he's already said that. He said that twice. That's important. Sightarm has a question for the panel. How does one tell the difference when peer support versus professional support is appropriate for one's personal situation? Ooh.
Can I jump in there? This is Namaara. Would it be okay if I addressed Sidearm?
Of course.
Okay. I just wanted to say from our perspective, from my perspective, it's not a one or other, like us versus them, or that one is better than the other. I think that there's room for both professional support when it is appropriate to the situation, and peer support, no matter what, always helps navigate systems, emotions, situations, and so it's not one or the other.
If I could just jump in for a moment, I totally agree with Namaara. It doesn't have to be one or the other. The only exception that I would make is if I have someone in a peer support group who is expressing that they may mean harm to themselves or to others, and it's very rare, then they really do need professional real life help, therapy, perhaps some medication, perhaps a short stay in I call it the clink. I shouldn't call it the clink. A short stay in a facility. But yes, I think one can reinforce the other. But obviously we can't prescribe. We can have no responsibility for what somebody does. We can only use our education to help people, to educate people, and bring them along.
If I could, just really quick, I think one of the values of peer support groups in that question, because I don't believe it's one or the other, New Line, is that I learned a lot about how to pick a therapist, and what created a healthier experience for that from other members of support groups. New Line. In fact, as a person with chronic pain, I did not know there were therapists who specialized specifically in chronic pain or chronic illness or terminal conditions. And that was very helpful to learn. New Line.
I have one question, and it may end up being the last one so that our next presenter can work. Sidearm is thanking the panel for their observations. I have a question for anybody. It kind of starts where Kelly was talking before, actually. How do you know who is your peer? After I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, I attended a few different peer support groups, but I just couldn't feel a positive relationship with members of what I kind of thought of as bitch and moan sessions. I really felt very different from those people. How do I find real peers?
One of the problems, this is Anya, one of the problems that can happen with a peer group is, it's kind of, we're all kind of complaining and wallowing. I call it wallowing. I think it's up to the facilitator to kind of redirect towards, okay, let's not wallow, let's go forward, let's move forward, let's grieve this and get through it. Thank you.
I think one of the reasons I change support groups is to avoid getting stuck at a certain place. New Line. And I think there was a time that I needed to wallow a bit, but I'm glad that I moved from that space. New Line. So it seems possible that those groups do serve a purpose to some degree, but I also think, like I said before, things may not click. New Line. And I think also there's a lot of trust involved for me. New Line. And if I can't forge that trust relationship with the group, it just doesn't work for me. New Line.
If there are no other comments from the panel, I'm going to slip in an advertisement here. In Second Life, our virtual ability group has identified over 120 different peer support groups that exist here in the virtual world for various disabilities and chronic illnesses. And these are just the ones in English. We know there are ones in other language as well. And you can see posters about those groups over on Health Info Island, and I put the plural in there.